Morning, everyone. I just wanted to post a little video kind of giving you a tour of the Canvas page for this course. I know you've probably used Canvas for some of your other courses, but if you've never had an asynchronous course, you may not have used all of the features here or been aware of some of the different attributes. So the first thing I want you to notice is that if you click on announcements, you will see a link to my office hours. It tells you when my office hours are, and if you follow the link, then it has the link to the Zoom meeting. So that is how I will ask to meet with you, whether it's during the regularly scheduled office hours or if we make a different arrangement. Okay, so you will notice that there are some different icons on the side here. You may not have paid attention to those before. So when we have the little speech bubbles, that's a discussion. So sometimes it's just a response to a question, but usually it's going to involve you having a discussion with a couple of your other classmates. I've set the discussions up so they randomize. You won't always be with the same people. So you'll get a chance to interact with some different people. And then you'll see these things that look like a piece of paper with a corner turned over. Those are pages, and they mostly just contain text or information. If there's a date underneath those, then that means that's something that I want you to read. Now, in the case of this one, the welcome one, it's not too terribly long. You can, this is your first assignment basically, is to read this, and it says to do. So I would like you to read this today. But most of the time when you see to do, that just means make sure you've started looking at it by then, because the overview pages, like Module 1 overview, will have quite a bit of content. So I don't expect you to read all of this in one day, but I want you to get started by that date. So, and if you're not getting started by that date, that's an indication that you're falling a little bit behind. So there's nothing to turn in for things that are listed as pages. Now, this section here at the beginning has a whole bunch of different pages. This is sort of like an extended syllabus, just anything and everything that you might have questions about how this course works is listed in here. You do need to put a link to the syllabus, but if you look over here on the side, you'll see the page syllabus. So this has all of the content that is in the syllabus. There's a link to the text that you need. Hopefully you have found that. We are using the American Chemical Society's Chemistry in Context. This is available through Macmillan Publishers, and you can order it online, and I believe they have the ability for you to order it through the bookstore as well. So either way is fine with me. And then finally at the bottom here, you'll see this other one has today's date. This is the course schedule, and I'll be updating this throughout the course. As I put assignments, you'll see that they will fall onto this calendar here. And I've also listed my office hours. So I have office hours on Tuesday mornings because I know some of you work evenings, and I have office hours on Wednesday evenings because I know some of you work during the day. Most of your assignments you will see will end up falling either on Thursday or they will end up falling on Sunday. And then I will have beginning assignments on Fridays, and I will have, or sometimes Mondays. Occasionally I will have vocabulary or other short assignments due on Tuesdays. So you can look here for what kinds of things are coming up. Assignments will also appear on the calendar. So the calendar here that has the assignment show up as well. It just doesn't tell you when to begin things. This week only, we have this mini module here for getting started, just to kind of get you oriented with where things are in the course and where you can turn things in and that kind of things. Because this is an AOI or Area of Inquiry course, there are certain skills that they want us to have, and so I have those listed here. And there will be a couple of assignments throughout the term that will be specifically targeting those skills. The AOI, or area of inquiry, covers science as a general rule. And so because of that, I want to hit some of the cross-cutting themes that go across all sciences. And so you can see those themes here. And then there are certain molecules that I think are really important for you to be familiar with. And so those are under molecules to know. I'll have you memorize different sets of those. And so this link is here so you can constantly go back to that. Otherwise, I expect you to kind of go through the modules. So if you are looking from a phone or a tablet that automatically goes to modules, you can just follow along on the modules. You'll click on the module overview. You'll see some of the assignments listed underneath, the important assignments. One of the important assignments, every chapter will have a vocabulary thing due at the beginning and guided notes due at the end. The guided notes are basically going to ask you to respond to the objectives. So provide answers or examples of the objectives. So if I go to guided notes 1, it basically says that, and then I click on the objectives, and those are listed here. So I just need to find these things in the book, and those are things that would be relevant for upcoming exams. I also want you to notice that underneath there are criteria. This is how I will grade your guided notes. And so you'll see part of this is completeness and correctness. So just making sure you've answered everything and that you've given a good answer for it. And then clarity and neatness, that it's not just, written on the back of a candy wrapper and that kind of thing. Usually I give full points for this. So this is kind of the minimal stuff. Now, because you're using this as notes, I also want you to keep in mind that this should be done in such a way that it is useful for you. So you might enhance your notes in a couple of different ways. One way might be to draw an illustration, give examples of specific things, make a note that makes a definition easier to understand. You might highlight with colors in order to show where vocabulary terms are or where other important concepts are. So when I see those kinds of things, I know that you're really doing A quality work rather than the minimum that's necessary, which is C quality work. So that's kind of an important thing to keep in mind. This is serving in substitute of quizzes. So that's why I'm kind of judging this one sort of harshly. So that's why you should be paying attention to that. You will also find in the overview some other things that you're going to need to do. Usually there's going to be a reflect due for each chapter, sometimes with the opening video. So this one is listed as a discussion, but really I just want you to respond in most cases. Sometimes I'll ask you to respond to each other, but usually just respond. And then there may be videos or interactives for you to work with on the overview page. And there may be some references to your turn. Your turn is in the book, and I've given the section number because not everybody's working with the paper text and the pages don't always align. The answers are usually given in the text, so you can kind of check yourself on those. And this is just to give you an idea of the kinds of questions you will see on the exams. So it's a good way to check yourself. There's nothing to turn in when you see your turn. Every time you see do this, that's kind of giving you instructions for what you're supposed to do. I've usually broken up the module into a couple of different places. And so you can see we had the first part of the chapter, which was kind of basic review material. This is more intense material that maybe you haven't seen before, another specific assignment with a discussion, and then in this case, a final unit on the area of inquiry. Like I said, this is going to be peppered throughout the course, and you'll have an assignment that is due here. And then I will end each one telling you where to or what chapter we're doing next in the next module. So that doesn't mean you have to go to it right away to complete this. It's just you're at the end, go on to the next thing. So that kind of gives you an overview of what you're supposed to be doing. one thing to notice on some of the overview pages, and I'm trying to update them all, is that I've broken up concepts that are important into two groups. So the chemistry and context book, it throws out a lot of information, and I really don't need you to memorize it all. This is a chemistry course, and so I'm going to highlight the important concepts, chemical concepts that you're supposed to be working on. And then I'm going to highlight some other contextual content that I may be asking you about as well. So chapter 2, for example, is called The Air That We Breathe. And so the contextual content that I might be asking you about is important pollutants, particularly air pollutants, and their sources, and how we judge the risk of exposure, and how do we mitigate pollution. And if you're not sure what the word mitigation means, then that's something to look up so that you know what exactly I'm asking there. And then each chapter is going to tie in at the end a little bit about green chemistry or sustainability. So the American Chemical Society is very concerned with green chemistry, which is basically the idea that as we do chemistry, we want to make sure that we are using the resources in the best way possible so that we don't use up resources that are limited, that we don't damage the environment while harvesting those resources, that the chemicals that we work with as much as possible should cause as little harm and do as great good as we can manage, and that we use them in such a way that we don't create a lot of waste. That's called atom economy, and that we don't do a lot of damage to the environment or to humans during the process of making, using, or disposing of those chemicals. I will sometimes have practices for you to be able to practice the specific chemistry content. So that kind of covers basically how the course will work. We're going to cover 5 chapters, plus the kind of overarching area of inquiry themes. You will see under your grades the assignments that you will have, and I apologize for these things that say missing. Those are the ones that I need to update the due date, so that will change in just a few days as I get things updated here. You can see the weighting on the side. So you can see the biggest categories are summative. Those are going to be your exams, and discussions. So it's very important that you give a good response to those, not just one word answers or copying what other people say, and your involvement. And then the other categories are your guided notes and the practice assignments. So the formative assignments you can think of as homework, and there will be a few of those. One I haven't posted for the first module, but I will get to that. But you will also find at the end of each module some practice things. Anything that's listed under practice only is not for a grade. It's only for you to practice those skills in preparation for the upcoming exam. So that's kind of a tour of everything that is going on. I do have some old exams that I've only taught this course out of this book once before, but I have some old exams. If you go under quizzes, you will find they'll be listed as old quiz 1 or old quiz 2 or old exam 1. When you click on that, it will give you the exam that or quiz that I gave the last time. You can take it yourself, but do take a note that I'm not planning on grading the open-ended questions on these unless you specifically want me to tell you whether or not your answers are correct. So this is worth 40 points, but there may be 6 or 7 points that are for open-ended questions. And so your score wouldn't be a 40 until I went back and graded those. You can repeat the quiz and it will give different questions when it is repeated. Again, this is just for practice, but it lets you see the kinds of questions that I ask. The course ends on June the 27th. That's when our final exam is due. Due dates are set to expire at midnight. That is midnight Eastern time. So if you happened to have moved to a different time zone, be aware that it's midnight in Georgetown, Kentucky. So I welcome any questions. Feel free to use the inbox over here on the left to send me questions. You can also use the general Q&A to ask me questions. That's really helpful if it's just kind of a general question about the course and not specific to you, because then other people can see the answer. Sometimes if I get questions that I think might be like that, I'll just copy and paste them there. So you might look there to see if your question has already been answered. And this also sends to my email, and I will be checking my email every day. So you can look there. So good luck to you. And I'll try and post a video or two for each module that kind of gives a little bit more information about specifically what I'm looking for in that module.